Well, welcome, Erin. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Thanks for having me, Stacy.
Absolutely. I've heard such great things about you, and this is the first time we get to meet live, but it'll be a fun conversation and we're going to dive right in. I like to do things a little different and start with a fun question of what was your first job, and then what are you currently up to?
Oh, that is a fun question. My first job outside of babysitting, I started babysitting, I think, when I was 10 or 11. But my first job was when I was about 15. I grew up in a small beach town north of San Diego, and I got a job in this very high-end gift shop. Like it had cards and home decor, and it had specialty candies. It was a really special gift store called Say Apropos.
Oh,
I absolutely loved it. And being the personality that I am, I immediately said like, oh, I can do this and I can do that and I can do this. And so I've always been really creative. And so I was designing displays in the store, and then I would hand draw um, like their promotional postcards. And so I did all by hand, and I absolutely loved it. I worked at Say Apropos for fit from the time I was 15 to 18, and I adored it. And I have to tell you one claim. I'm so glad you asked me this
yeah.
question. My claim to fame at working at Say Apropos was when I was 17 years old. It was December. I was closing shop. I was alone. This is in the 90s, early 90s, and a stretch limousine pulled up with a driver and a woman came into the store and literally bought up half the store. And I was trying, and there weren't cell phones in the 90s, so I
Yeah.
was I was calling the owners. They weren't answering the phone. I thought, oh my gosh, like what is happening here? I locked the door. I wrapped everything up. I mean, she literally bought half the store. It was tens of thousands of dollars. It was like incredible, and it was just me. And it was she handed me her credit card. I was like, either she's gonna steal everything or I don't know what's happening. And it was Jenny Craig. Do you
The
like
weight loss
the
program?
weight loss guru?
Yes. Oh my God. I can't even imagine being 17 and trying to like keep your composure and
I
navigate such
did
a
my best and I kept my composure. And yeah, so that was I'm so glad you asked me that question because I
yes.
loved working at Say Apropos.
What a great experience for someone like you. I'm like, did she stumble into that? Did that create her? Did it find her? Or that's amazing. And then what are you currently up to? I know you're up to some great things.
Yeah, so since the time I was 15, a lot has happened now that I'm 50, 52. But I'm almost 52. And yeah, so for the last 14 years, I have been the CEO and founder, and more importantly, food geek in chief of Sticky Fingers Cooking. We're a children's cooking school. Started here in Denver. We're non-brick and mortar, so we go to where kids are. We go to summer camps and community centers and every school in our community.
Well, I love that. We were commenting before we went live about your amazing background and your shirt. I don't
I
think
live
they
and
all bring
breathe
it up to
food.
you.
I
Yeah.
live and breathe it.
Yeah, you
Yes.
can tell you have a passion for it. And what a unique business model. Being a newer mom myself, I'm like, oh, my son needs to learn this. What took you down that path? I think that's really cool that and I love that it's not brick and mortar. I mean, that's very different than what I would naturally think of when I think of a cooking school.
It is very different, and it's our secret sauce. It's the reason why have been able to scale and grow and be so successful is
Yeah.
that we don't have that brick and mortar. So my background, other than gift shop at Say Apropos, was I really kind of my professional career was all in hospitality restaurants. I managed an Italian wine importing company.
Oh,
My husband is a restaurateur, so I love restaurants. I love hospitality. And when we had our third daughter, we have three daughters. And when Vivian was born, it didn't make sense for me to go and have a 9 to 5 job, be chained to a desk, have this traditional job.
Yeah.
It really didn't. And so I decided, my husband and I decided that I'd stay at home. I'm pretty restless staying at home. I like having lots of things to do. So I was introduced to after school enrichment through our eldest daughter. I had never heard of it.
Okay.
Growing up in that little beach town in San Diego, there was the beach and there was soccer and maybe there was Girl Scouts. I don't know. I wasn't part of it, but there was like not much there wasn't after school enrichment. And
Sure.
for those of you that don't know what after school enrichment is, it's wonderful programming that really just started, I mean, not even 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
It's a pretty booming brand new industry. And 14 years ago, it was the Wild West. There was just, people would come in and offer classes for kids to take after school. And my daughter was taking like Japanese, she was taking Taekwondo, she was taking an art class because guess what? She went to public school and the art classes were the funding was canceled. She would take science classes. And I just thought like, wow, this is such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I saw three benefits. That for kids, I love that my daughter and other children can be like curious. They don't have to be passionate about like, oh, I'm going to be the next, soccer star, or I'm going to be the
Right.
next, amazing scientist, whatever it might be. But they can take soccer classes and they can dabble in a science class after school in a very safe, fun, creative way that they can just dabble and kind of see what if something ignites them or not, and just try different things. It's just a wonderful place for kids to try new activities.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like that because I was actually a latchkey kid. I'm from the
ah,
70s and 80s, and my parents worked till 5. So we just hang out in the cafeteria doing God only knows what till 5 o'clock. And so it sounds like what this industry or opportunity has created is more enriching experiences for kids that maybe have parents who work.
100%. Yeah, that you nailed it. That's exactly right. And then of course, it's a no-brainer for us working parents that we have an extra hour in our day. That's and they're that your kids are doing something worthwhile. They're in their second home, which is school. They're there all the time. You know that they're safe. You know that they're doing well. And then I've been a creative visionary entrepreneur my whole life. My husband and I have started multiple businesses. I'm always like thinking about things in different ways. So I put on my entrepreneurial hat and went, this is actually an amazing business model. And, 14 years ago, and from my experience, it was, these were individuals that were coming in and offering these amazing classes to kids. I didn't see a lot of actual businesses. And I thought, wow, well, this is like having a little like restaurant outlet, a little cooking school, if I could figure this out in every school in our community. And so I was thinking Denver, then I was thinking Boulder, and then I realized well, this could scale and grow. And so that's exactly what happened. So I started at my kitchen table with $5,000 that we could not afford to lose,
Of
and
course.
I just started. I started with my wonderful father, my wonderful creative father. He was integral in getting this started. My husband, he was our first official bean counter, our
Love that.
doing payroll and all of that. And so it started very humbly, but with a big audacious goal that this could be a very very big thing. And
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to see that it's getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think about when you started versus today, having myself own real estate, having a women's co-working space, then obviously the pandemic has changed everything.
Hmm.
But not having brick and mortar to me today is like, duh, like that's fabulous. Of course you wouldn't want to own brick and mortar or have brick and mortar. But back, what'd you say, 15 years, back when you started, that was probably a foreign concept. Did you get a lot of pushback, or did it naturally make sense because the schools were really kicking this off in terms of these enrichment programs? Like, did you face any, like, if you launched it today, I think everyone would wrap their head around and be like, yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. How was it pre-pandemic launching something that didn't tie to brick and mortar?
Yeah, schools embraced it. I mean, I did
Oh,
go
good.
in 2011 when I started. I really did knock on and go into about 100 schools in Denver and Boulder, and 97 said, we'll pass. We don't know what you're doing, but three
Yeah.
said yes. Typical entrepreneurial story. Three schools said yes. fun fact, we're still in those three schools, and it just continued from there. There was I love creativity within boundaries. And so not only are we non-brick and mortar, but we don't use kitchens to cook in. So I created something that we call a cooking kit. All of our chef instructors have these cooking kits. They fit in a Rubbermaid bin. They're very portable, and kids that take our classes, they cook everything from scratch. So
Oh,
we have been writing an original new recipe every week of the school year for the last 14 years. We have thousands and thousands of recipes, because recipes are there's usually three recipes in a 1 hour class. And these kids are making Ethiopian wok stew. They're making pad thai from Thailand. They're making spring rolls. They're making crepes from France. They're learning about the world through food and making everything from scratch without using a kitchen. And so, to date, we've taught over 200,000 kids how to cook in over 80,000 cooking classes. And we've given $1.5 million back to the schools that we work with. And we're able to do that because we are non-brick and mortar. So
yes.
yes, I've always had to explain it, less so to schools, actually. They are just like, we have 90% enrollment rates across coast to coast, across the nation. So schools absolutely understand it. It's interesting as a business model when I'm talking to other business people, or we started a franchise brand, when I'm talking to people that are interested in owning a Sticky Fingers cooking franchise, I do need to explain the brick and mortar, because as parents, like I think that and as business owners, you expect like walking into a storefront,
Yeah.
and you can envision maybe what a cooking school for kids would look like. But when I start explaining that our overhead is very, very low. We do, we're not paying traditional rental. We're not paying for lights to be on. We're not paying for traditional advertisement. So it really keeps our margins very, very high. It's a very successful business. We're a social enterprise, so that's why we're able to give money back to the school, and to be able to grow our business. So it is 100% our secret sauce, and I love that you asked me about brick and
Well,
mortar.
I love that because I think so often there's these limiting beliefs, right? Like if I don't have brick and mortar, if I don't have a kitchen, you're just blowing past all the natural limiting beliefs that I think people would have when like looking and dissecting your business. So I think that's so fascinating. And I was actually a former high school math teacher and middle school teacher. And at the middle school I taught it, I'm having these like flashbacks of these after school activities that were happening in the school. And this real estate is just sitting empty in a lot of ways. So it's like, how can you activate that real estate in this like really healthy, great way for these kids? And it sounds like you
Absolutely.
nailed it. Now, going from three schools
Yeah.
to, 200,000 kids now having experienced your amazingness, I mean, that's quite a journey. Take
Mhm.
us through kind of what that felt like. Because, everyone looks at growth and thinks like, when I reach this or when this happens, it's going to feel, the mess is going to go away.
I know there's always, you reach a mountaintop and then you see the next mountaintop, and you rarely have time to look at like, oh my gosh, I just climbed a mountain, and look at everything, look at the view. You just look at there's always other mountaintops to climb.
Totally. And I remember
Yeah.
my mentor, I remember when I was, getting close to 1 million in revenue and I was having all these different challenges because growth is hard and growth is messy, and calling a mentor of mine who was at like 20 million in revenue and hearing her kind of struggle through some of the same things. I was like, wait a minute, I thought everything just went away. Like you hit this level and life was good. Now, obviously there are good moments, but I'm just curious like what your growth has been like and some of the challenges, the unexpected challenges that you faced.
Yeah, growth has always been very steady, if not explosive, just from day one.
Yeah.
We are completely bootstrapped, so every penny has gone back into the company to have it, continue to grow. Of course, starting with three schools is very different than now having a franchise brand in 10 states. It's very, very different. So there's always been like, I mean, we're probably in our 20th stage of growth, to be honest with you.
Yay.
But I would actually say more likely we're in our third stage of growth. But, really starting in Denver, Boulder, we started here. I mean, those three schools turned into 30 schools very, very, very quickly.
Wow.
So, we then we needed some software support. There wasn't any white labeled software out there.
Yeah.
So we started a tech company.
Oh,
Yeah, so we're also a tech company. Uh,
okay.
Tech company has been around, and our technology platform has been around for 13 years. So
Okay.
we've been building technology and software to support our business
Mhm.
um, in a very unusual way. It's where we've been slowly building it as we're building the business. So every part of the platform is optimized to suit our needs and
Right.
our franchise owners' needs and parents and all of the things. So our first stage of growth was really kind of figuring out what it looks like to go into schools. I knew I'm not a natural teacher myself. Unlike you, I love that you're a high school teacher. That's amazing. I think that's a fantastic, amazing skill. And I don't possess that. I'm actually pretty insecure, kind of a nervous teacher. And
Oh,
so I
okay.
developed the curriculum around me, like being very fearful of what if kids ask me a question about the recipe or the ingredients and I don't know what it is. So because of that, our curriculum is insanely detailed. So in all of our recipes, we focus on a country of origin, where whether it be Italy or China or Chile, right? We
Yeah.
focus on what it's like to be a kid in that country. We focus on one ingredient. It might be capers, it might be kale, it might be carrots, whatever, it might be quinoa, whatever it might be. So we focus on that. And then we always focus on food history as well. So, because every recipe has an amazing story that's almost always tied to global world history
Yeah.
and cultures, and it's always amazing. So, the first stage of growth was really kind of figuring that out. We've never cooked like traditional American kid food.
Sure.
And that was something that in our first phase of growth that the kids embraced it. They love not being talked down to. They love the
Yeah.
challenge. They loved it. I mean, even the most picky eaters, they wanted to participate. They wanted to try things, and we're still seeing that 14 years down the road. It was really like the parents
Well, I
that
was
they're
gonna say, I was thinking like the kids were probably hard to convince, but the parents were probably like, "What is this?"
that's why we don't invite parents
Yeah,
into the
oh, that's
classroom.
very
But
interesting.
yeah, so but it was very much like that first stage of growth is really kind of figuring out, like, is this working, and how are we able to deploy all of these chef instructors to all of these schools. And then everything just kind of unfolded very organically. We had chef instructors that worked here closely with me in Denver and Boulder, and then they had children, they had their first kids, and they wanted to move back to their home states. So we started in Austin, Texas. We started in Chicago, Illinois,
Oh,
and
nice.
that gave us, that. Then we had employees in 3 states and 3 major markets, and we did that for over a decade. And
Okay.
that really honed in our system. So that was our second phase of growth,
Mhm.
where it was just like really, really honing on our systems, making sure, and actually we were very playful and creative. Like
Yeah.
we played with our management models. So our management model was a little bit different in Austin than it was in Chicago, than it was in Denver, and we just kind of played with, like, what is the best way to manage these large thriving territories, and how are we going to go about doing that. So that was a lot of fun. I've been working with my friends and my neighbors, all women, for over a decade, building this together. And luckily, my executive team, they are the yin to my yang. They are like incredibly organized, love systems, love processes. So, they really have shined in the second phase of growth. The third phase of growth would be the pandemic. You brought
Yes.
that up, and that was
Yes.
for the world, right?
Totally. Yeah. Interesting to think about how your business model might have changed during that time when kids aren't in person. How was that transition or navigating that fun time that we all got to go through?
It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I mentioned that my husband's a restaurateur. We
Right.
we had past tense had two restaurants uh,
Yeah.
when the pandemic started. I have Sticky Fingers Cooking operating in 3 states, and every school in the world was shut down, and every restaurant in the world was shut down. So everything that we built was just uh, gone, or not gone, but on hold.
Yeah.
You know,
Unknown. Yeah.
no, it
For
was such
indefinite
an
amount of
unknown.
time.
Yeah, it wasn't the 2 weeks that they originally waited. Yeah, so that was a very pivotal, very, very stressful time for years. It was
Yeah.
stressful, but again, I loved how the analogy of what you said about the mountaintop. What it really offered us, and of course now, hindsight, looking back, it was the most transformational thing to happen for Sticky Fingers Cooking.
Yep.
And I'm not grateful for COVID in any way, but I'm grateful for that disruption, because things that are important,
Yes.
it's usually a struggle. It's usually something that it's something that's really hard to do. Things that are meaningful, you don't give up on it. And so I was never going to give up on Sticky Fingers Cooking. My executive team and our entire team, we were not going to give up.
Yeah.
We kept everyone employed through COVID. And we took a deep breath, and we looked at the mountaintop, that particular mountaintop that we had scaled, and we looked back and we went, this is wow, we have been working
Yeah.
so hard for a decade. Look at what we have built here. This is amazing. What can we do now? So we wrote and published 5 cookbooks in 2.5 years.
I love that.
We launched a national franchise brand because we realized that without knowing it, we created the perfect franchise. And we started looking into female business ownership statistics in the US, looking at data. I had never done that before. I never had the space and time to do that. And I was absolutely horrified. You mentioned when you hit $1 million revenue. Stacey, do you know that, we are in the US, we are around 52% of the population in the US. We own 41% of
Okay.
businesses,
Yeah. And
which
it's
is
like 1% or something ungodly about a million. I don't know that number.
It's it's less. It's way less than 2% of
Okay.
all women-owned businesses gross over $1 million a year. So you're in, like, yeah, that
That's
one
wild.
1.5% of women-owned businesses that have grossed $1 million a year. I never knew that.
Yeah.
And let alone the fact that I started this business with $5,000 that I couldn't lose. I didn't have access to capital, as many women do and many founders do. So I was horrified, and we just started looking into franchising, and we launched our franchise brand 26 months ago. It's July 1st, so 26 months ago, and we haven't looked back. It's just been transformational to see our business owners come into our system, totally changing their lives. I love that you're a high school teacher. We have about 4 of our franchise owners that were teachers that
I've
are
been
now
thinking about that the
business
whole time
owners.
because I can't tell you how many of my friends are still teaching and they retire at, young, like 50
Yeah.
something. And then they're like, I'm not done in life, but they
Mhm.
don't know what else they want to do. And they know they want to do something. And many of them want to become entrepreneurs, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like, what does that look like? How do I do that? I've had this organized career. I mean, I think about when I left education, you live by the bells. Your day, you eat by the bells. Like everything is so structured and regimented to go from that to like freedom galore was such a weird transition for me. So this whole time you've been talking, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many teacher friends of mine that would probably love this.
Yeah, and you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly right. And what I have found is that I have such an appreciation for franchise owners because they are a very, very particular kind of entrepreneur. They're a unicorn because they are people that want to be in control of their lives. They want to have their own destiny. They don't want to be chained to that desk, as you said. They don't want to live and die by that clock. They
Yeah.
want to be able to create, to put in the tremendous amount of effort that all of us do into our jobs and then actually reap the rewards for it. They want to be in control, but they love systems. They love being part of a team. They love the safety that a national franchise brand will deliver to them. They love having that camaraderie. And it's a very special kind of person and a special kind of entrepreneur that wants to be a franchise owner. And we're thrilled that, I mean, we have an amazing franchise owner team. And we just brought on Sticky Fingers Cooking New York City. So we're
Oh,
very
wow.
excited about that. And we're just growing leaps and bounds every single month. And it's giving me as much pleasure and as much joy and as much pride to teach all of these kids how to cook as it is to see new business leaders emerging in their communities. And then also we bake philanthropy into our business model. So for them to be able to give back to their communities that they live in, it's this beautiful symbiotic business model that I'm just in love with.
Oh, I love that. And you can feel that energy coming from you. And earlier when you were talking about being a kind of a nervous teacher and not necessarily coming natural to you, I was thinking about Rise, and my business partner used to say, you're actually a secret introvert and get social anxiety. And that's why you go so above and beyond and make sure to create this environment that people feel safe in. And I was thinking it sort of feels similar. And I think that actually is your superpower, right? By it not being something that you feel necessarily comfortable with, you're creating what so many people need. People who are good teachers at heart don't think about all the small nuances of what someone would feel. Same with Rise. Like I would think about how someone would feel walking through the door and what we would need to do to immediately put that armor down. And that was part of our superpower. So I actually love that it didn't come natural to you, and it might be a piece of your success.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. And I've never had anyone like frame it like you just did. And that's so interesting. And Stacey, yeah, I'd say that your secret introvertness,
Yeah,
yeah, it's your superpower. And that nervousness, I have learned, it just means that you deeply care about something. So, so
absolutely.
yeah, I think it was part of my secret sauce,
Yeah.
perhaps. Yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
love that you have that. It was like, oh, I totally can relate to that, and how that actually was a win for us. It's the whole strength and shadow concept. Now, one of the things I keep thinking about when you're talking is, as women, and you brought this up earlier with your daughters, this desire for flexibility and be able to show up as a mother in a way that really feels good and able to juggle both. And it sounds like you've done something that so many people can't do or haven't been able to do, of finding that opportunity to be able to do both, right? Because it's usually a choice. It's an or versus an and. I think a lot about ands, right? Like it's either have the flexibility, but in theory not have a strong economic, position,
Yeah.
or it's have a high salary but not have time for your child. And I'm obviously oversimplifying it, but that often is what I think mothers face. And what I'm hearing is that you were able to create something that kind of lives in that and a little bit more, that you can create something you're passionate about but yet still show up for your child in a way that makes sense. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, yeah, Sticky Fingers Cooking was created out of necessity and need. I needed to contribute financially to the family. I wanted to do something creative and something that I felt that I could put my heart and soul into it. And I needed and wanted equally to be at home with the kids, with the three kids. Little backstory: our eldest child has, when she was 2, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and 2 other autoimmune disorders, and 2 other disorders. So she has complex medical issues that we have had to navigate. She's healthy and thriving and 24 years old now, but still dealing day to day with complex medical issues. And so, that was something that I really needed that flexibility, maybe more than most parents, to be able stop everything, go to a doctor's appointment, stop everything and make sure that she's okay, stop everything and go to the school play, like all the things that you want to do. And I wanted to start a business that, I clearly work in and that it fits around my lifestyle. So everybody that works at Sticky Fingers Cooking has the exact same setup that I do in that flexibility. So, about 90% of everybody, of the hundreds and hundreds of people that have worked with Sticky Fingers Cooking over the years, 90% of them are women, and most of them are mothers. And whether they're teaching classes or they're on our executive team, or they're managers, it's something that I wanted to afford it to me, and that's what we're giving to everybody that works with us, and then all of our franchise owners too. I know a lot of people don't like the win-win. I believe in the win-win, and I strive for the win-win, and I try to think outside the box to create a win-win.
Mhm.
And you touched on that, like when you started talking about this subject, what popped into my mind is that dreaded term, work life balance.
Yes.
And I want to banish that term from our vernacular. I
Yep.
struggle with the word balance. I go
Yeah.
to yoga every day. I balance every day. But if you look down, I don't know if you ever practice yoga, but if you are balancing on one foot and you look down at your foot, you're not a statue. You're
Yeah.
like oscillating back and forth, like, and it's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
that means that your attention is going from right to left, frontward, backwards. I mean, just so fast that from a distance it looks like it's balanced and that you're calm, but you're really not. You're sweating, you're
Yeah.
freezing. So I actually really have a hard time with that term, work-life balance. I prefer harmony, because you're I mean, building a business is not easy. I was working for Sticky Fingers Cooking like 7 days a week starting this business, and but then, also, and then feeling guilty about my kids. And then I'd be with my kids or a family vacation. I'd feel guilty about not paying attention to Sticky Fingers Cooking. It's always this, back and forth. It's always that balancing on the one foot, going back and forth, frontwards, backwards. And so I prefer harmony,
Yeah.
that if you look over the course of your year, or even the course of a week, or whatever time you want to look at, if you feel that there is some sense of harmony,
Mhm.
I think it's a win.
Well, and I
But
think the work-life balance, it sets up an unrealistic expectation that we're going to somehow show up and figure out how to balance it. Like for me, that's never going to happen. So holding myself to that standard just felt silly.
it's never going to happen. You
Yeah.
you talked about the mountaintop,
Yeah.
and it's just like, you reach that pinnacle of the mountaintop, and it's like, oh, good, here it is. I have it forever, and there's no other mountaintops, and everything is easy in life, and here I am, and I've made it. Like, it's never that. It's never.
No. Well, and that kind of leads to another question that I like to ask is how your definition of success has changed over the years. Because I can remember, when I started out looking up to these amazing women business owners and thinking success was something, or even in
Oh, sure.
college, thinking I wanted to be a CEO, not knowing what that actually stood for. I think I glamorized what I thought success was. And as I got in the thick of things and really got to experience it, I think my definition of success definitely evolved quite a
Yeah.
bit. So, and you doing what you've done and doing it for as long as you've done, I'm curious how your definition of success has evolved through the years.
Oh, that's a fantastic question, because I think that if you're going to grow in life or in your business and your life, that you always have to redefine what success looks like to you. I really think that you need to. And so at the first phase of growth of Sticky Fingers Cooking, it was survival. It was sleepless nights. I mean, at one point, I considered hawking my engagement ring to make payroll.
Yeah.
It was like, how are we going to make this work?
Mhm.
So that was success. Is like we survived, and look, we did that. The second phase of growth, success looked like a harmonious team and building a team, being able to maybe relax a little bit from the financial side of things. Things were moving, like kind of sitting in that knowing and that appreciation and the acknowledgement that this is working. That felt very successful. Right now, in this third phase of growth, success to me is making a meaningful impact,
Yeah.
uh, and having the utmost confidence in what we're doing and seeing the impact that we're making in for kids and parents and schools and communities, and then our franchise owners as well. I was introduced about, I think it was maybe like 5 years ago, because I think this was a pandemic thing, if I can remember clearly. But I was introduced to the term ikigai.
Oh,
Uh,
yes. Yes, I've seen that. Keep going. I like this. Yeah.
yes, ikigai is a Japanese word. We don't have this word in English. Japanese the Japanese language also doesn't have a word for retirement. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
yes, and so ikigai is what this word means is when you're living your ikigai, there's three like kind of components to it. That it fulfills you, that you're doing something that you truly love, and that it fulfills you. The third is that it creates some financial impact for your family, takes care of your family, your household, whatever that looks like. And then the third is that it does good for the community. And right in the center of whatever that ikigai is your ikigai and your purpose. And so that was a no-brainer for me. There's a beautiful book that you can order, and it's beautiful, that explains it much better than I can. But I've been living my ikigai, I've realized, and for the last 14 years. And that's being in that state of having all of those three buckets filled.
Mhm.
It gives you the grit to keep going. It gives you the passion to keep going. And that's why there's no word for retirement in Japanese, is because success is living and finding your ikigai.
Yeah. No, I love that. And the nerdy math teacher in me is thinking about how it's a Venn diagram all
It's a
over.
Venn diagram. That's right. I realize I'm talking to a math
A
teacher.
big
That's
old nerd
exactly
is
what
what
it
you're
is.
talking to.
It's a
Yes.
Venn diagram.
I love that. No, it's so true. I think that's the journey of being an entrepreneur that I think is so important, right? When you're just going out to have a business that makes good money, it's
Mhm.
just that drive that no matter what, you wake up just loving and wanting to do it, even on the worst days. And I remember
Yes.
that feeling about, currently not doing something at that level, but I keep thinking about that. Like, what is the next thing that no matter
Mhm.
how hard it gets, no matter what's going on, I'm still waking up with that feeling of like, I'm meant to do this. And even if I win a lottery, I'm still doing this. I think that's such an
Exactly.
important feeling, and one that can be really elusive to people. It being in that chapter of my life where, yes, I've experienced it and I remember that feeling. And now in this other chapter, I do think about how important that is and what a blessing it is to have figured that out. And it doesn't happen overnight. And, it happens in different seasons of your life. But I love that you're providing that for people. And one of
Mhm.
the things I think about in terms of your growth, you're growing through this franchise model, which I think is so brilliant and so powerful for a lot of women, hopefully listening. They're going to be calling you saying, like, what about me? But, for an outsider looking in who's never done this, who has seen other franchises, I feel like for me, I sometimes felt like it was too good to be true. Like, oh, I don't know, is this person trying to sell me on a bill of goods? That's a natural fear, I think, of the consumer, meaning the person that's considering the franchises. And so how have you faced that? Like, am I crazy to say, like, because I was just thinking about like, what are some things that she might be facing? Because what you're building is so incredible. I'm like, everybody needs to know about this. Why haven't they, like what challenges would a franchise model face? And that's one of the challenges I would wonder if a franchise model would face, is this whole too big, too good to be true, which again is that limiting beliefs. It's like, it's that, can't do it without brick and mortar, can't do it without a kitchen. I think we're naturally wired to think about the limiting side. Like this can't possibly be as good as she said, like those kind of things.
Yes,
I think
yeah,
we're so
no.
wired for that. And obviously you're not. And I think the longevity of what you're doing really speaks to it. And like your track record speaks to it. But do you ever face that whole too good to be true feeling from people?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. And I mean I think I'll just talk about the franchise industry and the franchise business model in a generic terms because honestly when we started looking into it, all I knew was the golden arches,
Yeah.
right? Like that's all like, and so I think that's where a lot of people start. It's so interesting. The franchise model is one of the largest business models in the world, and especially in North America, and especially in the US.
Yeah.
And they don't teach it in business school.
No.
If you
In
get
the
an
whole startup
MBA,
world. Like I'm from the
no,
startup world, they barely know anything.
nobody knows anything about the franchise model, yet it's one of the most prolific business models in the US. So yes. So if anybody, so I'd love to talk about the franchise industry just in generic terms, whether you are a founder of a business or a CEO of a business that's looking into franchising your business, or you're looking at maybe becoming a franchise owner, a franchisee in a brand.
Yeah.
The franchise model, when it works,
Mhm.
it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And there are lots of boxes to check
Mhm.
whether you are and look in the mirror if you are a founder looking to franchise your business, or lots of things to look at if you're looking at a particular franchise brand that you might want to own.
Yeah.
The first thing is I like to break everything down. One of my favorite words is simple, because you can't get to simple without distilling down a multitude of complexities. And so I love the word simple. And I like to explain the franchise model in three very, very simple words.
Yep.
First is safety. There needs to be a brand that is recognizable, that has social proof, that has business proof, that has business acumen behind it. There's lots of franchise brands that start without having that longevity. They just start a franchise brand and maybe have a brick and mortar, maybe have a business that has been only a year or two. That it doesn't mean that can't be a really great business, but it's something to really look at. Like if you don't have the track record of falling on your face, of making those mistakes, starting a business from scratch is a whole lot of work. We're data driven. I love data. And 80% of small businesses fail in the US after 5 years. And it's not because of they don't have, that these founders don't have a great idea. It doesn't mean that they're not smart, that they don't have all this business acumen, that they don't have the best idea. They're not passionate. It's death by a million paper cuts. It's
Yeah.
all of the things that go into building a business. It's a lot. So you have safety in a brand that is already, recognizable somewhere, even if it's not recognizable in your hometown or state, that there is some longevity behind it. That is really important.
Yeah.
Systems are incredibly important. If you are a business owner, and hopefully you have businesses in different markets, so that because different markets have different personalities, managing staff in different places is a whole different level of business.
Yeah.
And you need to look at that. Do you have systems and processes for literally everything? It's really boring work. It's work that takes a lot, that you have to ask the question why for everything that you do in your business.
Yep.
That takes time. And so you need systems to be able to franchise your brand. And if you're looking at a franchise, you need a brand that has a system for everything. The third word is alliance, and that is my favorite word. As women, I believe it's just in our DNA to have alliance and to have community and support, and to support one another. And so that's what the franchise business model is at its core. It's a relationship. It doesn't matter if you're selling a widget or a hamburger or cooking classes for kids. It is a relationship. So our success as Sticky Fingers Cooking franchise, our success is our franchisees' success.
Yes.
Full stop. So if they are not successful, we are not successful. So that like support and alliance is incredibly important. So kind of looking, if you're looking to franchise your business, you really have to look at those three things and seeing, do you have all of these things in place? If you're looking for a franchise brand and you're thinking you want to be your own business owner and within a brand, you need to look at those three things. And if they check off those boxes, then go for it.
Yeah. Oh, I love how, and you're right, creating something, making something simple is quite difficult. So I appreciate the effort that you put in to be able to distill that down. Uh,
Yeah, and then one other piece
yeah,
of data that I'd like to share is I mentioned the 80% of small businesses fail in the US after 5 years. The franchise model reverses that directly on its head. In this is pure data. 80% of franchisees, franchise owners are succeeding, they're thriving after 5 years. And it's because they have the safety, the systems, and the alliance behind them.
I think that's so smart and such an interesting thing to think about because as a founder, who's scaled a business, I think about like who I was to get a business from 0 to 1 is so different than who I am once you've, that second stage and how much you have to grow and evolve and change. And so the thought of going back to that 0 to 1, I mean, I think that's why so many businesses do fail, right? Because that 0 to 1 phase is so challenging and you're figuring out product market fit and you're figuring out this and you're doing that. What you're doing is creating this opportunity for someone to step in
Yeah.
this
Oh,
period
I couldn't
of
have
time.
said that better. I couldn't have said that better myself. I mean, Emily, if you think about it, we have been talking about the three phases of growth of Sticky Fingers Cooking. Our franchise owners, they get to start at phase three. They get to
Yes.
start with everything that we've created. They get to stand on our shoulders
Yeah.
and focus only on their growth. They don't have to worry about everything else. And so we're seeing our franchise owners getting finding success so much faster than we ever did because they get to just focus on the growth of their business, doing connecting with kids in
Yeah.
schools and doing all the things because everything else is really taken care of for them.
Yeah.
And it is remarkable. So we're seeing our franchise owners celebrating their first year by buying a second territory, so celebrating their second year anniversary of business by buying 4 territories. So it's just like, something that I couldn't have even fathomed. So it's just amazing. It's
Oh,
just amazing.
that's so interesting. And so as you think about your next chapter and as you're continuing to grow, where's your eye on the next mountain? What is the next mountain or, what's in the works for you all?
Oh, we're here. This is the mountain. This is the mountain that I'm loving this mountain
Yeah.
because we're ticking the boxes that really fill all of our cups here at Sticky Fingers Cooking. We every week we're cooking with more and more kids from coast to coast, and we're talking to very passionate unicorn entrepreneurs that want the safety of a franchise brand, that want to start their own things, people that are leaving corporate in droves that
Oh, I'm
can't,
sure.
that all the government layoffs and, you spoke about teachers. We're talking to people every single day that are just like, this is exactly what I want to do. And I can't even bear to go in for another interview, to go for that other corporate job. I can't do it anymore. And so, the kids in cooking, that has been the top passion of mine for 14 years, and really neck and neck is supporting these new franchise owners and seeing these business leaders emerge in their communities. It's
Oh,
just so
well,
fulfilling. It's so
I,
fulfilling.
being from St. Louis where my business started, I'm like, St. Louis,
Oh, St. Louis is perfect. I,
yes.
yes.
St. Louis, you bet. Hopefully, someone from St. Louis is listening. If not, I'll be sending the podcast. Well, as we wrap up, the question I like to ask is, what's one way you've chosen to lead or build differently than was expected? Now, we've hit on a lot of them already, so I
Yeah.
hate to ask this question after you've already shared so much about how you're doing it differently. But I am curious, throughout this journey, if anything really stood out as something that you're leading or building differently than what people really expected from you. Aside from
Yeah.
all the things we talked about, brick and mortar, we've hit on some good things.
I really, really like that question. And, It for me, the first thing that popped, because I could answer this in so many different ways, but really what popped up for me first is your first question asking about my first job. It kind of taking me full circle back to me being a kid. And I was really creative. I was an awful student. I I managed to graduate high school, but I there wasn't any expectation on me. My parents were free-loving hippies that said, do what brings you joy. I wasn't expected to go to college. Yeah, I didn't. I don't have a college degree. I certainly don't have an MBA. Um, and life has always been challenging, trying to piece together what my husband and I are going to do. We ended up creating this absolutely beautiful, magical life that I pinch myself every day. And we are living our dreams. We're each living our ikigai. And so I think that I think that my whole life has been built differently. And where I believe in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I was almost a little ashamed of it. I wanted to be, I wanted to assimilate more and to feel, I think it was that insecurity of doing things differently because I've always done things differently. I mean, I actually joke with my team because everybody on my executive team not only has, college degrees, they have multiple college degrees, and some of them have MBAs. And I'm just like, well, it's actually a really good thing that I don't have an MBA because I don't know all the rules that we're breaking, you
Oh,
know. And so I think I've built Sticky Fingers Cooking and my life doing things very, very differently.
oh, I love that. And such an important message because I think we get sent these messages that we have to do life and business a certain way. So I love that you're breaking the mold, so to speak. Yeah. Oh, well, you have been a joy to talk to. I could talk to you all day. I have
Likewise.
more conversations. But if someone's listening and then they're like, oh my God, yes, I need this. How do they find you or how do they get more information about this amazing business that you have built?
Oh, yeah. So stickyfingerscooking.com. That's our main website. We also have an incredible resource. I mentioned we've written thousands of recipes. We have about 1,200 on that is open for the public. We really want to be a resource for kids and families. So you can kind of see all the wonderful things that we cook with kids. So stickyfingerscooking.com gives you a lot of information. If you're interested in learning more about the franchise, Sticky Fingers Cooking franchise.com. It is a mouthful, but you can find us there. And then if you wanted to connect with me directly, fun fact, I am the only Erin Fletter on the internet. And so you can
Oh,
find me very easily. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you can
yes, I
always
follow you on LinkedIn. Your messages are super inspirational. So if anybody needs a pick me up, I would suggest following you.
oh, thank you, Stacy.
Well,
Oh,
it's been a pleasure and I appreciate your time and thank you so much.